guess we're waiting to get people.
Yeah, people are already joining. So gonna hand over to Precious. Okay.
Is my video on? Can I put the video on? Oh, good. But you stopped my video.
Okay, we'll enable it again. Can we?
Nope, it's not
Precious.
enabled.
Okay.
Nope, no, not.
Precious, is her video enabled?
No, it's not. It's not. I keep trying.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll do it now. A second. I'm just trying to find you. Okay.
Welcome, everyone. We will give another 5 minutes for people to join. In the meantime, kindly indicate in the chat where you're joining us from and your line of business. Thank you.
Precious, can you please make her a host so that she can have her video on? So just checking, Auntie, that you can turn your video on now.
Oh, sorry, I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that.
Position the light and can you see me?
Okay.
I see the shadow.
Can see you perfectly.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so start in literally 1 minute. I think we're welcoming people still.
Yeah, 4 people in the waiting room. Here just 6 people.
Okay, we'll kick off. Welcome everyone. Hope you can hear us, hope you can see us. If you can't, if there are any technical challenges, please put your messages in the chat. Precious, over to you for intros and we'll kick off.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Precious, Community Manager at Naija Startups. We are a business leader network that brings together professionals and entrepreneurs for networking, career and business opportunities, peer mentorship, and capacity building. This evening, we are hosting a special guest speaker, and I would hand over to our convener, Ms. Aramide Abi, to officially introduce our speaker. You're welcome once again. And if you haven't yet, kindly indicate in the chat where you're joining us from. Thank you.
Thanks, Precious. Hi, everyone, again. Like Precious said, we're Naija Startups, the Business Leader Network, and this is our first ever webinar of 2024. 5. Yeah, we did have a closed session, but this is our proper webinar. So we're very excited to have our speaker with us today, honorable speaker. I'm just going to introduce her very quickly just so that we can then get into it. So welcome. Like Precious mentioned, please indicate in the chat where you're joining from. It will be lovely to just know where everyone's joining us from today. Okay. Of course, now the fact that we can read it means I don't have to read it word for word, but I'll just capture a few things from her stunning profile. She's CEO and co-founder of Wealth 8, a digital investment platform, and she also is managing partner at Wealth 8 W8 Advisory. The goal of Wealth 8 is to bridge the wealth gap for those who are traditionally overlooked and undeserved, particularly in the Black and multi-ethnic communities in the UK and on the African continent. Mrs. Nkontchou is a qualified lawyer uh, with over 30 years experience, collective experience in England and in Nigeria. Prior to launching Wealth Aid, she practiced law both in Nigeria and in the UK. And significantly, she's now managing this multi-family office, which manages over $100 million of assets, which is W8 Advisory. As you can see, she's a member of the CISI. She's been on so many different acclaimed women to watch lists, like the 100 Women to Watch. She's also a member of the Advisory Council of the Black Women in Asset Managers, a network of over 500 Black women professionals in the City of London. Can we give her a very warm welcome? We're very excited to have her. I personally have listened to her speak at a webinar, and I was just so inspired. And so this is fantastic to have her on here. So we're just going to hand over to Mrs. Bimpe Nkontchou, and it's a pleasure to have you again. Thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm actually speaking from sunny Lagos, although London is my sort of default home. So thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here to share and also to learn from everyone. So I will kick off. I think we have some slides to share, which will come on very shortly. And I know I will be listening to my own voice for a while, but I will encourage you to please share your questions in the chat so that one can we'll make a stop at some point halfway through to take any questions so that I want to make it as lively as an interactive as possible. So please don't hesitate, putting your questions in. So the theme today, building and preserving wealth across generations. I see people continue to enter the waiting room, so I would hope that our organizers are letting them in, because I can sort of see people are waiting. But yes, this is my, I would say, pet peeve. This is my, I would say, vocation. I'm a lawyer by background, but having worked in the private wealth industry, and wealth is a term that I say to people doesn't mean riches. Wealth is, all of us are wealthy. Our intellectual property, qualifications are part of our wealth. Our families, our children, if we have any, part of our wealth. Our business and professional and personal networks are part of our wealth. So, when people say, oh, you're a wealth manager, it means I have to be rich. No, I'm talking to you from the point of view of every one of us, as long as we are living and breathing, living a purpose that helps us to increase wealth. And obviously part of that wealth is to do something that will give us and our family financial security. So that's the theme. The theme today is building wealth and preserving it across generations. So you all know who I am, founder and managing principal of W8 Advisory, and also decided to create a digital wealth platform as a means to achieve scale, as a means to democratize access and give everyone, I feel, a chance to think about what to do to not just create, preserve wealth, start very little drops of water make the mighty ocean. So the idea of a digital platform is for every one of us to know that we can start planting the little seeds which become big seeds, and then we harvest it at some point in our lives for the benefit, or at intermittent points in our life for the benefit of our families. So let's crack on. Let's talk about what this is all about. The next thing is for me to just visually lay out my stall, tell you what I will be talking about today, so that hopefully, even if you're waning in attention, you say, well, I'm going to stay awake till number 4, or I'm going to wake up on number 3 to 6. So basically, this is it. We will start looking at current market dynamics across the globe, what things are doing, what is the growth forecast for this year across the globe, because I know that you're all from different parts of the world, and everything that we do in one place, as we know, impacts another. Let's look at our financial well-being and our money mindset. That's super important before we even start looking at the wealth creation fundamentals, looking at what to do to preserve the wealth as we're creating it, preserve it and grow it. And then how do we want to ensure that whatever assets we've managed to accumulate over time, hopefully have a positive net position, what can we do to ensure that we're passing it on to the next generation in a conflict-free manner? And we'll again tackle a few points, give you a few. I want to actually be practical here. So I've created two personas, two different profiles, which might fit or resonate with some of us, all of us, and talk about what those personas, or that those person of that age, that gender, that potential profile should be thinking about in their wealth creation and financial planning journey. And then we'll wrap it up with looking at the future of wealth management, which means in digital age, what are the tools we can use and access from our living room as opposed to getting up, going to the bank and seeing a financial planner. And that's sort of what wealth is all about. So that's what we'll be talking about. I think we can crack on and try and get through as much of this as possible. I will probably speak for about, I think this is an hour, so I'll probably be speaking to you till about, say, 10 minutes before the hour and leave time. But if we have to stop, I might stop once to we see any very interesting questions. So let's look at the current market dynamics right now. What is the global space looking like? And this slide sort of looks at real GDP growth. This is a forecast. This is what the experts are saying we're expecting to happen this year, to 2025. So we're looking at a global outlook of average growth of 3.2% across the world. And it might come as a surprise to some of in the UK, or it might not, that the UK is forecasted to have lower growth than Ghana or Kenya, for example. And we are still optimistic that Nigeria will also be seeing reasonable growth if a lot of what we call the macroeconomics line up. So I think let's just look at wherever we are in the world. We're hoping for growth, and perhaps part of what we're doing is going to impact on that or benefit from that growth. So as far as that's concerned, let's look at what the trends are in Africa. What are we looking at? I think many of us may not be in Africa, but perhaps we're from the continent, or perhaps the work we're doing is related to the continent. But just taking three particular hotspots: Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. And again, this is resource from the various data that the World Bank provides. So we're looking at, again, we're looking to the past. We're looking at 2023, and I guess what was GDP percentage by sector. And in Nigeria, it looks like agriculture is still, pretty much an important sector. Trade, so is trade, and so is IT and tech. We see IT involving telecoms and tech as well. And Ghana, services, industry, agriculture. So whatever you're doing may fit into one of these, may straddle across different countries or parts of the continent. But again, I think I just want to show you that, clearly one is not talking about building wealth in a vacuum. We're talking about it, at the backdrop for most of us who are doing Africa-related activities. This is the backdrop against which we're doing it. So let's look at our financial money mindset. Basically, what is that when we talk about a financial money mindset? It's really important, and I think money. What do they say? They say is the truth. Some people say it's the root of all evil. Some people say, if you think money causes problems, try poverty. That's also problematic. So we're looking at really, let's start off from a positive mindset. Let's start off from money should buy us stability and security. Money should help us to prepare for emergencies. So whatever it is that we're looking at structuring, portfolio, savings, investments, it's key for us to keep in our minds that we're looking at emergency preparedness. COVID, I think, taught a lot of us that anything can happen at any time. We want to be prepared for emergencies. Good mental health. I mean, sometimes too much of it can actually be a mental health problem. So you need a balance. Even if you are someone who's created wealth rapidly, perhaps your company has grown exponentially. There's the stress of managing that growth. There's the stress of managing the money. I mean, if, for example, if any of you follow lottery winners, across the world, tendency is that people who have never had any money suddenly win a lottery pot or jackpot of $30 million. The statistics have shown that many of them don't do well mentally. Many of them actually falter with their relationship. Many of them even, the money doesn't last. So having money by itself doesn't actually guarantee good mental health. So we're trying to create something that allows us to be balanced and to be prepared for emergencies. So as far as that's concerned, let's look at, so that's the importance of having your financial well-being against the backdrop of that. So fostering a positive money mindset, because it's really important, and I think, but one of the things I would encourage people to do is to learn to be realistic about your money mindset. We all want to say to ourselves, yes, if you know that you're someone who manages money badly, who is, will spend money on a whim, perhaps having a partner, a friend who holds you accountable. But let's forgive our past financial mistakes. Many of us, and I think in an African context, I can speak as a woman, I'm a professional woman, that many of us have grown up in households where discussions around money isn't something that's normal. And therefore, we make those mistakes quickly. We follow peer pressure when we're younger. We make that first big salary and we buy a fancy car or handbag without actually having any thoughts to, what the long-term planning for our financial success should be. So let's visualize our financial success. Let's not compare ourselves with the Dangotes, there's people have come into wealth or create wealth either by inheriting it, either by, dint of the work that they're doing and, landing an amazing job. And some people, we all go through our cycles of perhaps, a lower ability to create wealth and sometimes the ability to grow something exponentially. So let's not dwell on our mistakes. Let's not compare ourselves, but let's visualize financial success is really accessible to everyone. And financial success doesn't mean being rich. It really means having good money habits, having a plan, having goals, and having the discipline to keep to them. So I think if we're all hopefully in agreement that actually developing a positive money mindset is important, I think the next slides will be more meaningful to us. So wealth creation fundamentals. What are we talking about when we're talking about wealth creation fundamentals? Now, this is I was hopefully a graphic demonstration of what we're talking about. We want, wealth creation is a process of growing your financial resources, whether it is by managing your income, your savings, your investments. That's definitely important. Now, income generation is the first, step. Earning money, earning a salary, that first job, or if you're a startup, that first piece of business you win to start generating real revenue. That's the first step. Now, the next step is how are you managing it? Managing it involves, saving, smart investing, and even understanding the risk settings of where you are, whether it is business capital resources, whether it's your personal, and really being strict, especially when you're a startup self-made entrepreneur, being strict about this is the company's revenue. It's not necessarily my money. I'm paying myself a salary from it, and even if suddenly the company has a windfall, I'm not going to suddenly pay myself a windfall because the company has a business plan, the company has projections, the company itself has to have saved for a rainy day. Same with you. So managing the money, whether in a personal corporate setting, you've got to be very disciplined about the different source of income and the different things you need to do. Pay yourself first. That's important. I think our well-being, when we're working very hard, building a business, paying ourselves first doesn't mean paying ourselves a lot, but it still means paying yourself consistently. The other part of paying yourself is not just the income, is putting some of that money away, whether it's through a pension pot, we'll talk about that later, or whether it is through, a savings or investment, portfolio. So paying yourself for today is the income, the salary that you can touch. Paying yourself for this first is setting up a portfolio, something that's going to enable you to have long-term growth. So again, just touching back to the initial earlier slide that talked about, emergencies. And I think financial resilience, apart from financial well-being, I think if you're financially resilient, then you're on the road to financial wellness. And that resilience is the ability to withstand life events that will impact your income and your assets. And those could be unexpected illness, the unfortunate incidents of death, divorce, a global pandemic, as we all of these things. People lost their jobs, people lost their businesses. If you were relying on importing or exporting and goods were not flowing, or the factories in China shut down, all of those things are eventualities. But how can you weather that storm, those challenges as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, or even as a salary person who suddenly has to take a pay cut because the company's fortunes have gone down? It's by knowing that you've prepared yourself, by knowing that every month, like when I say pay yourself first, is that you're putting something aside also for emergencies. So going on with what we're trying to discuss, building financial resilience, like I've said, these are just bullet points. Budget planning. What about if you're earning? Build an emergency fund first. If you haven't got one now, I would say, please, I want to take away from this evening is building that fund, putting aside an amount. And when I say emergency fund, how much do you need to run your life? What are your overheads? Let's add your rent, your mortgage payments, let's add school fees, let's add, food. Back of the envelope. It may be that you need anything from, in Nigeria, it could be 10 million, 25 million. If you're abroad, it could be 10,000 pounds a month, it could be 5,000, whatever it is. You need to put away at least 3 months, if not 6 months of that somewhere. Don't touch it. Because trust me, the eventuality of that unexpected event will happen. And it may not even happen just to you. We're all Africans. We know that it might be a funeral back home. It might be contributing to your siblings' wedding. You might be even supporting someone in family who needs support. And that's, you're called upon. At least you have that pot and you can say, well, depending on what the emergency is, you have a fund that you can dip into. Now that emergency fund itself is good. A good idea is to have it easily accessible, not tied up in some financial product that you have to wait for 30 days to unravel. So either it's in a savings or in a easy to redeem investment portfolio. So at least you see some growth. But please to do that. Save for a retirement, definitely. So again, I will talk about what I call the 50-20-30 rule. But looking at your financial life, you need to think of retirement, think of health insurance, life insurance, and then managing your debts, paying your taxes. If you're employed, of course, your taxes will be deducted at source. But again, if you're self-employed, you need to also be aware of that. So building financial resilience, just being disciplined and knowing every month where your money is going, but being self-assured that you're planning for eventualities and also planning for the future. So if there's, if Aramide, please, if for any reason there's after this slide, any question you think anyone wants me to tackle, I'll do so. If not, I will continue.
Sure, will do.
So, okay. So, we've talked about, financial wellness and your money mindset. Are you a spender? Are you a hoarder? Are you someone who, sometimes spending is not bad if you know that why you're spending and if you know that you can afford to spend. Because sometimes, part of living life is enjoying the fruits of your labor. but not enjoying it to the extent that you are using credits to enjoy it. But still, I think, you want to know that you are making decisions that allow you to be balanced in your spending, in your saving, and your long-term view. So when it comes to wealth preservation, why is that so important? I have to say one thing. I think we are all living longer than our parents and grandparents did. Even in the West, as I would say, the global North, women are living to their 90s, and so are men. And often, well, there's still this data that shows sometimes women have a longer life expectancy. But at the end of the day, whether you're aging together as a couple or aging individually, one thing is clear, that assuming that your retirement age, let's even take it at 70, many of us will have 20 more years of living, being alive, when income generation ability is dwindling because we're older, we're frail, perhaps illness. But we want to make sure that we put something away that's going to help us create a passive income that's going to generate something that we can live on comfortably, at least in the same way we're living when we're earning a salary. So looking at wealth preservation, we need to think about, when we're thinking about a savings plan or investment plan, inflation, erosion. Fortunately, when it comes to Nigeria or many African countries, we need to look at the foreign exchange risk. So even if you think you're saving a lot of money in Naira, or you have investments in Naira that are giving you amazing returns, you need to obviously remember that, the Naira spending power is obviously pegged to the dollar in our minds, because most of the things that we access in this country are pegged to the dollar. So really, wealth preservation is to think about high spending, lifestyle quick, not over concentrating in any asset class, and trying to make as many new, good decisions as possible. So now, how do we then? What do we do? What do we do to deal with this whole idea of, good wealth preservation? We diversify. So diversification really means not putting all our eggs in one basket. So, some people think, oh God, I have properties portfolio, 3 townhouses here, on a piece of land in Abuja, another flat in Accra. Great, all of that, you spend money, you're thinking that you're doing well, but it's over investment in one sector is not a good thing. Like I said, life is made up of a mixed bag of things. Different events tend to affect different investment products. So real estate may be something that you like, but you've got to think about diversification. And the pie chart on the right is your ideal, for example. So I think one thing I have to just say here, this is not advice, this is just suggestions, this is just showing you the way it's the preaching is diversification, but the percentages here are not written in stone, but it's just to show you that, honestly, for example, I would definitely align myself with the pie chart on the right, which gives me some good stocks, some stable stocks, and maybe they're more conservative. So good stocks tend to be the ones that are a bit more high risk, but we want to diversify, so we have a bit of everything. And real estate is good. Alternatives are good, which includes crypto, for example. Don't put more than 10% in an alternative product, because they're the ones that don't have track records, that tend to be high risk and highly speculative. Art, for example, is an alternative sector. African art, we know, is increasing in value, but it's still speculative. So I think one message is, when you're looking at diversification, whether you're doing it yourself, if you're someone who's well versed, it's often good to take advice. But I think always remember that your capital is at risk. Definitely, there are no guarantees, but if you're not a finance professional, it's always a good idea to get advice, or use services and solutions from people who have created portfolios and who are managing the portfolios in a way that is aligned with your risk appetite. So you've created this wealth, you've put in place certain measures about how to preserve it. And again, it's important to plan. It's important when you've created a wealth, especially the more wealth you're creating. Sometimes I see it when I come back to see clients, because I still work as a wealth advisor. we're all very busy with, the businesses, the startups, the established businesses, busy with dealing with power supply, HR, human resources, capacity, trading partners, in licenses, regulations. And the more successful we are, the more work there is to do, to the point where we're creating so much wealth, but we haven't got a plan. And one thing we all remember is that our time on earth is not indefinite. I think there's a saying that only two things are guaranteed in life: death and taxes. So we're creating all this wealth. How are we planning to ensure, first of all, preservation, but also generational transfer? A lot of times we are in our lifetimes, working to feed families, educate children, but perhaps some of us would like to know that if something happens to us, especially when our children are even still young and not on their feet, that we've done enough to help, get a good footing. So this chart just shows you that, honestly, if you want to know however much wealth you create, every generation, if the wealth is not preserved or is not managed in a way to grow, the wealth is, clearly over time going to dwindle away. So that's another reason why wealth preservation is important. So financial planning, because part of wealth preservation, part of ensuring good wealth preservation is, is to have a plan in place. So financial planning is the only way to ensure long-term growth. So we need to sit down this evening, once a month, with our partners, with ourselves, with our siblings, with our children, and set financial goals. It's February already, I can't believe it. But hopefully many of you started the year setting goals for this year. I want to buy a piece of land. I want to buy a car. And my son or daughter is going to start school. I want to be able to afford to send to private school. And it might even be that you're saying this to happen in 3 years' time. So the goals are not necessarily goals for this year. So we always have short-term goals, medium and long-term. And we have to have all three, thinking about all three in our sight. It may be, in different levels. So your short-term goal of, like I said, buying a house, building and, moving home or moving country, maybe that 3 to 6 month goal. This medium-term goal could be that, we bought land which you bought 5 years ago, but you want to start building it this year to finish it in 3 years' time. You want to actually start, enroll for an MBA, next year, and that's a medium-term goal, but the fees are, the US are XYZ. So, you've got goal. And long-term is always to do with your retirement planning and your health. Your health should always be a goal, your healthcare, whether it is because you've got access via health insurance, and you recognize that as we get older, the nuts and bolts loosen. So your health insurance plan, you need to look at how upgrading it in the next 3 to 5 years. So balancing your risk, and thinking of your life's milestones. Oh, I'm turning 30 or 40 or 50 this year. What's the milestone I'm setting for myself? So be very strategic about it, think it through. Like I said earlier about even having, this is your 100% pot of money. My rule of thumb is to apply what I call the 50-30-20 rule. That pot of money, that salary every month, 50% of it should cover your needs. Your needs being your obvious needs of shelter, education, food, and healthcare. That's where your needs should, and then your wants. Your wants are, well, food are basic, 5 a day, you want to have the right fruits and vegetable. Your wants would be eating out, for example, leisure activities, hobbies. I want to play golf and I have to pay a gym membership. I like traveling. I like to go once a year on a nice holiday. Those are your wants. So 50% should cover your needs, not more than 30 should cover your wants, and 20 should be where you pay yourself first. So that paying yourself first is about taking that 20% and splitting it maybe into 3 or 4. So one part of it goes into the emergency fund, one part of it goes into a pension, part of it goes into, some other product. okay, that will actually ensure you meet some of your goals. Like I said, if you're not if you're self-employed and paying tax, that's in your needs. Your tax bill is as if for those who also live in the UK, is a priority. So I want to make it a bit practical, and I think once I've gone through these two personas, if anybody's got questions or disagrees or agrees, please, I'd like to hear. So we just made up these two people and hoping that what we're talking about resonates. So Amina is 31 years old. She's CEO of a startup tech company, lives in Nairobi, Kenya. She's married, recently married, expecting her first child. So someone like that, her goals would include balancing her short-term financial needs, baby clothes, baby's health, possibly childcare. Those are probably short-term. Buying a home, you might want to, and a partner might think, we've been living in a one-bedroom flat before we had a child. Now, our family is growing. Are we going to buy land first? Are we going to buy a home or rent a bigger property? Financial security, again, thinking of that medium term and to long term, thinking of putting money aside for that emergency. So towards a pension or some retirement plan, even life insurance, and exploring potentially digital management solutions because she's so busy, going and sitting down in the bank or talking to a financial advisor. They don't have a big pot, but there are platforms out there like Wealthy that would allow her to start small. The other person we're looking at is David. David is 58, an entrepreneur, could be, owns his own business, so he could be a senior exec in a leadership position, earning a salary income about $85,000, probably plus even dividends if he has a stake in the company or has not part of an option. He has access to the company's option scheme or some other employee benefit scheme. He lives in Lagos, married with 3 children. The eldest has already gone to university abroad. So we're looking at, he's going to want to fund the 2 kids abroad, maybe for uni. That's probably a medium-term goal. He wants to start reducing his risk because he's 58. And so his appetite and his assets, the way he looks at allocating assets to investments may be a bit more conservative to Amina, who might be more open to risk because she has a longer time trajectory to build wealth. So he wants to diversify into international investments for stability, to obviously meet those offshore costs of education. And he wants to ensure that he's got good estate planning. Because obviously, even though he's got retirement planning in place, he starts to think about our mortality. I think once we start hitting age 60, we want to make sure we've got enough for our family. So this is what I think Amina and David will be looking at as their key focus, and the ways in which potential suggestions. Again, it's not advice. I need to keep saying this is a suggestion based on my own personal experience in the industry and what I've seen could work. But there are many ways to skin a cat. So for example, David's short-term goals, he needs to start preparing for retirement, and he wants to look at investment products that are possibly, like I said, slightly lower risk, building a portfolio that's give him steady returns, possibly maybe more fixed incomes and equities, but in capital preservation and a steady income is key for him because he's got low risk appetite. His focus really should be more about maybe even a property that he bought in the past, he's renting out and is giving him passive income for retirement. He would have thought of the things Amina is doing now at age in her 30s. She starts doing those things now. Sometimes she's in her 50s or like David, 20 years time. Surprised that if she starts putting a little bit of money away, even though she's not a high earner, with compound interest in a medium risk portfolio, let's say giving her 7%, returns over time, that's $100 a month that she's able to put aside, would grow quite significantly in 20 years. And so start early. That's one of the, I would say, takeaways. And also start early. Don't wait till you're rich, because many people always say, "Oh, when I'm rich, I'll, and earning, how much am I earning instead that I can put something away?" I will say to you, whatever you're earning, just say to yourself, I'm going to leave on 90% of this, and I will make it work. And if 10% is going straight into something straight away that is helping you build a emergency fund, for example, and I say 10, it could be 20, but let's learn to live with that 90. And you'll be surprised that we can adjust. Because if push really comes to shove and any of us were to lose our jobs or really hit on hard times, we will. We'll cut away, we'll cut out all the Netflix subscriptions. We'll easily, if we didn't have the money to pay, we'll cut out eating out. During COVID, how many of us traveled? How many of us, all the amazing clothing and shoes and handbags we women had bought 2 years, it didn't go anywhere. And we were living, we were cooking at home, we were all baking bread. Remember, there were lots of bread recipes of baking bread. So, those are the kind of things that we need to be thinking about at Amina's age. Someone's asked a question, who should do more property, Amina or Daniel? I think, Amina's obviously depends on your surplus income, because your property, yes, you can get a mortgage, but you have to be careful not to overburden yourself with too much debt. And if you're doing property purely for speculation, that's something you do when you have a cushion. So Amina will be buying a property. I would say buy your first home. The property you're doing will be a home, which is already an investment. And even if you're buying it in a part of town, look at us in Lagos. When certain new areas are coming up, past third roundabout of Lekki, those who know Lagos, they're like, oh, that's so far. And now the way the urban spread has happened, and in London we see it, areas are being regenerated, parts of London that we thought we'd never live in. So as a young person, look beyond the obvious, invest in that first home in an area you can afford. If you have to take leverage, take it, but take it that's something that your salary can support, because if you get redundant or if you lose your business as your entrepreneur, you have to wind up your business, you've got that emergency pot that can cover your payments. So I think this is just giving you maybe an idea of the things to think about, but really, really start early for those of you who haven't. So these are key takeaways, and by all means, take a picture of this slide. I think the key takeaways about how to apply this, the whole idea of financial planning and all of that is identify your goals. This evening, over the weekend, with your partner, with your sisters or brothers, your friends, if your girlfriend, sit around and we're talking about, the latest movie or latest restaurants. Let's have a, personal finance Tupperware party where we talk about our goals. It's, it's funny, I have a very close friend of mine, it's part of she and have 5 friends that set up what they call a Power Girls group. And basically once a year, they sit together, they're all married in their 50s, set their goals, and they hold each other accountable. And next year they come back and look at those goals, and sometimes they even do a half year. Set your goals, short-term, medium-term, long-term. Build that safety net. I can't even overemphasize the importance. We will all go through rocky times. We will all go through challenging times. We're all climbing mountains. And some of those times come when you're in a time of plenty. Sometimes suddenly the whole world comes crashing, or so really look at that. Someone asked me, what does efficient tax planning look like? Efficient tax planning basically means not overexposing yourself to unnecessary tax, and where you can be, and you usually do need advice, where you can use whatever the tax regime is and to be compliant, but still mitigate and reduce your taxes. That's one way. And I can give you a very quick example. Often in some countries, UK, for example, tax on dividend income is lower than income tax. A lot of times when you're starting a business, set up a company, and you are both shareholder, but you're also an employee. So first of all, the company is paying you a salary, but if the company is doing very well, let the company pay you more dividend than salary, because the dividend is taxed in UK at a lower rate of 20% than your salary income tax. That's an example. So tax planning just means, and if you don't know the lay of the land, getting advice on how best. Inheritance tax planning is also something. A lot of people buy properties in Nigeria through companies because that mitigates your inheritance tax, for example. So I hope that answers that question. So understanding your risk appetite, be very honest about your risk appetite. Younger investors can take more risk of long-term growth. They can, withstand the cycles, if 5 or 10 year cycles. near retirees should really focus on capital preservation as opposed to being highly speculative. Diversifying assets across classes, across geographies, holding assets, capital markets in Nigeria as well as in the UK or in Kenya. It's a good idea, even if you love, equities, but also if it's property, diversifying is key because the macroeconomics in different places, creates different sort of results. Like I said, planning for major events, and that's part of your short, medium, and long-term goals. Optimizing your tax and estate planning. And estate planning basically is about the smooth transfer of your assets. Now, I think I'll come and back and talk about that in a minute. But basically, just review what you have, what you're doing, market conditions. I know we're all super busy, but beginning of the year is a good time. Halfway through the year is a good time again to really review what you're doing. And if you're not sure, take the time. You're busy, but let's set aside 1 day a month, at least, or 1 day every quarter. When you really sit down and reconcile your bank statements, you should know where your money is going. Because sometimes you say, look at me, I had so many millions in my account and it's all gone. Why? Maybe because we were spending on things we didn't really need. And so we can't see where the money is gone. So that's something also to be aware of. So I'm going to come to the future. Well, estate planning, I mean, the future of wealth management is really about wealthy, but estate planning really, we're talking about, it's the simplest is a will, making a will, either going to a lawyer. In the UK, I know you can buy this wills packs from the post office and writing out, oh, I own a house, I own, maybe some jewelry, I own stocks and shares, and these are the people I want to benefit from it. And write it and get it witnessed. That's a will. But of course, as you start having assets in various jurisdictions, whether it's various types, and the wealthier you're getting financially, you might think of setting up a family trust or a family foundation. But even within your will, you can write a will that has a trust, because a will that's catering to beneficiaries who are minors. If your children are still minors when you're writing the will, write the will as if that opportunity could happen now. So don't say, I'm writing a will because I might be alive in 30 years. No, write a will. My children are now 10 and 12 years old. So therefore, if anything happens to me at this time, and you say, if I pass and they're still less than 21 or 18, then I want XYZ person to be trustees to do XYZ. But of course, even the will that says if they're that age, because if you die and they're much older, they're 50, then that trust doesn't apply. But I think it's a way of just giving yourself an assurance that you found a trusted person in your life who can act as trustee for you. So, coming too close to the end, and I will just very quickly touch on Wealth8. So I'm CEO and founder of Wealth8, which is a digital platform. You can find it in the App Store or Google Play. We're regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. And the whole idea was to give access to affordable investment portfolios managed by BlackRock and JP Morgan. And particularly, I felt, having lived in the UK now for 30 years, that there's still an ethnic disparity in wealth building. And I really felt that most traditional wealth managers feel people of color, women, young people, we don't have any money, so they don't waste time talking to us or marketing to us. But so Wealth8 in the UK only at the moment allows a retail investor to come onto the platform, open an account, and with as little as £8, create a portfolio of ETFs, mutual funds that are already pre-diversified investment products. And we have different risk levels, we have different types of portfolios. We have some that are more, I would say, less risky because they're mostly fixed income. And, compared to trading 212, Wealth8 is not a trading platform. I will say that I find that it's an anomaly to expect someone who is not experienced, that's not your day job, you're not a day trader, to actually be trading in equities, because you buy a lot of, let's say, Tesla shares one day, and recently there was an experiment and a Tesla car blows up, and you haven't watched the news, and the shares plummet. Look at what happened with those of you who are following the AI industry. Just because of this deep sea, whatever, in Nvidia stock fell, like wiped out. So imagine you've gone and bought Nvidia because you thought, oh, my friends have it. So Trading 212 platform are for day traders who will keep monitoring the macroeconomics, what's happening that will affect the companies that the stock they're buying. Wealth8 has diversified portfolios. We have mutual funds, we have ETFs, we have a bit of everything. We have a bit of stocks, a bit of bonds, allocated differently to give you different risk and returns. And therefore, it's like a DIY, but we've done it for you, but we're allowing you to pick what you like. So we're there, but we are currently only open to those who have a UK footprint. You need to have a UK address, UK bank account, and a UK NI number. We're basically 3 years old. We're a startup ourselves. I am a fellow startup founder, but we're hoping to be able to launch it on the African continent, most likely through some B2B relationship we're exploring within the next, say, 12 to 24 months. So on that note, I know we've got it close. If everybody gives us a few extra minutes, but at least we've got a few minutes for more Q&A. So please, I may just have a look at but thank you very much for listening. I hope whatever I've said, there's been some takeaways and there's potentially been some learnings, but I'm also here to hear and learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me just disconnect. Yes, thank you. I'm just going to go straight into questions. I don't know if I should read them out. There's a few. Okay, Caroline says, I'm a single mom with 2 sons. I spend most of my income on their tuitions and school. How can I invest some of my money realistically?
How can you invest some of your money
Realistically.
I think it's really, first of all, you spend most of your money, but possibly not all. So like I said, no matter what, try and create a budget where there is a little left over for you to invest. So like I said, your needs and your wants, I've said 20%, it could be 10. That is what you can hold on to invest in. And yes, it depends on what country you live in, what access you have to the markets. I wouldn't really, again, unless you're very experienced, I tend to hesitate to say go and start dabbling in the stock markets, unless you have a very good advisor or stockbroker with you. But mutual funds worldwide tend to be a safe place to start. And yes, real estate is also another place if you know where there might be an up-and-coming area, you can buy a piece of land, and even if you don't build it later, but you say that area is earmarked for a new train connection or road connection that's going to increase the value of the land, and I can sell it later on. So well, those are the things, but I think the first thing is identifying that you can extract something from your purse every month to put aside.
Okay, thank you for that. Someone else is asking, are there fees on Wealth8 to get onto Wealth8?
So there are no fees, to sign on. We only start charging you, we charge 1% of your assets under management, as in whatever funds you put into Wealth8. And the 1% is really because we paid a few bits to JP Morgan or BlackRock, who are the investor managers. We don't manage the funds. But there is no entry fee, and if you decide you want to redeem, take some money out, there's no exit fee. It's just a 1% flat fee, which is charged pro rata annually.
Okay. Soji says, I have an NI number and a UK bank account, but I live in Nigeria, a bit like me. Can I get on board? Well, I don't live in Nigeria,
If you
but
have an NI number, you have a UK bank account, or you have a UK address. Because we will do the KYC. So if you have those, because I know we're so mobile these days, so we have homes in different places. So if you have all those 3, yeah, by all means, you're able to be onboarded, because the NI number it's all part of our KYC, to be honest. But the funds that you put on Wealth8 must come from a UK bank account.
Okay. For capital preservation for retirees, what would you recommend or suggest?
Someone said, "Oh, he's super quick to auto-seal." Thank you. I think she was onboarded on the app recently. She said it's super quick. So thanks for that endorsement, Tosi. Really kind. But yes, it will be very, very easy for you to actually be onboarded. But sorry, what was the question?
For capital preservation for retirees, what would you recommend or suggest?
Again, capital at risks. I'm not a financial advisor. We have products on the app if you are able to use the app, for example. And I think it's really down to your risk appetite because capital preservation tends to be, I would say, more of a moderate to safe, you're not taking risks with that kind of money. You want to preserve as much. So you're going to be potentially looking at a product if it's a mutual fund that's probably has more fixed income, more bonds, than shares. Okay, so that's what I would say. If you have significant funds with any of the big banks or asset management houses, they're always there to help. But I guess we've created WealthAid because none of them would advise people with small amounts of money. But yes, I think look at mutual funds, look at something that has is medium to low risk, definitely.
Medium to low risk.
But also passive income can come from other areas like land or property.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have a retirement queen. She calls us her network. She is in our network, but her community is retirees. So this is great advice for her. Yes, Auntie Anyang, she's on the call as well. Are there plans for WealthAid to expand its offerings to Nigerian-based clients? I think you might have mentioned.
Yes, there are plans. I would say it's a journey because we are FCA regulated. We're based in the UK. I think we will look to explore partnerships, say with some significant asset management houses who we know also have robust KYC and anti-money laundering procedures because that's part of the FCA's sort of restrictions or supervision of us. So that is the key thing. And Nigeria is still classed as high risk.
Yeah.
But we're watching this space, but we know that we have a huge diaspora also in the UK. And I hope that talks like this, even if you're not using WealthAid, the idea is not just to use WealthAid, but to encourage people to really seek advice or look for platforms or networks or groups where you can share knowledge and information.
There's also quite a bit of educative material on WealthAid I saw. So even if you're not sort of getting your products, you can just learn finance, which is really useful for me.
Join our community. If you go on, even if you log into the app and you join, even if you can't use it, you can actually read and access our financial education on the app and on our website.
Okay.
And on our website, you can click and actually join our mailing list. Because then, and if you follow us on Instagram, for example, or follow us on Facebook, yes, there are lots of different snippets of financial education. So we're very keen to ensure that people get confident enough to select the portfolios that they want. We're not there to advise you. You select it yourself, but we need to help you build confidence.
Okay, thank you. I'll just run through. Is there anything major we should be aware of when transferring stocks and shares ISA from one provider to another, especially if the ISA is for a pre-made portfolio? So if you're transferring a stocks and shares ISA,
I think when you're transferring, obviously you want to, and by all means, we have ISAs, and this is for the UK market. ISAs are tax-free investments. You can put £20,000 away tax-free every year. So when you're transferring stocks and shares ISA, you probably want to try and see if you can mirror a portfolio that's aligned with your risk appetite. So if you were in something that was a medium risk or fully, mostly fixed income or mostly equities, we have the whole range as well on our app. So I would say to you, just try and find something that's aligned with what your current risk appetite is. Definitely, but we are also even going to be launching junior ISAs in the UK. The junior ISA allows the parents to set up an account for the child and put £9,000 away. And if you can put £9,000 away every year, it's tax-free. When the child is 18, you actually transfer the account to the child's name, and that again and encourage that child to start putting £50 into it, and that's a way to also start the conversation. Because one thing is so important is that we all need to start talking about money once a month. We all have prayer circles. We all do a lot of different things together. We party together. We celebrate birthdays and all that together. Why don't we sit and talk about money, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and share mistakes and pat each other on the back. I've met that goal. I've managed to put away $1,000 in the last 1 year. Yay! Like I'm not touching it. I think that will encourage others.
Yeah, it's
So we're
great.
putting
Wait,
aside
sorry,
50
I was
pounds.
saying £50. Where is that? I was saying it's great you mentioned the group of friends who sort of get together to sort of talk about their financial goals. I think that was a great idea. I'm gonna definitely take that on. Sorry, someone said they're looking to start investing wisely. What are the most important first steps to take? How can they balance growth opportunities with risk?
I think the first step is to understand what you're doing. And if you're someone who's still new to this, read a lot. Like I said, on our app, on our website, there are lots of snippets. So please read, understand, and then dip your toe in with a little bit of money. But understand that it's a long-term game.
Yeah.
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And like with anything, even with real estate, it goes through cycles. Just to give you an example, I remember somebody had put the money on Wealthpage 2 years ago. The financial markets were very choppy. And she's someone that knew me, so she rang me and said, I'm closing my account too. But I knew that she had gone into Wealthpage because she already had a portfolio property. She and her husband. She's somebody in her 50s. And I said, listen, you have a property in the UK. They told you today that your portfolio value had gone down. Will you sell the property now? No, because you're going to take a loss. You wait it out. You wait a cycle, and we've seen that in property markets in the UK, even in Nigeria, there's a cycle. So with anything, it's cyclical, and sometimes you have to put aside enough that you know that. First of all, if it's getting risky, don't put things into very aggressive, risky portfolios, but do maybe have 2 or 3 different portfolios and try and withstand the storm. And if it's getting very stormy, you can move stuff from the risky portfolio to the safe one that's not giving huge returns, but doesn't seem to be going down. So just to give you that. But yeah, I think but read a lot and understand your own risk appetite first.
Okay. Unfortunately, we have time for just one more question. How can people contact you while I read out the question so that then they can ask other questions or contact World 8? Let's just say World 8, yes.
Yes, they can email. Well, if you're on the app, you click on the hello button. Hello at well, you can do hello at Wealth. It's an email that comes just to me, to other team members, because I want to make sure that you get a response. So if I say email me and I'm busy with other things, but hello at wealth8.com and wealth-8.com. If you do that, the question will come into the number of us in the team, and you will get an answer. If you're doing it through the app, even more so. And please download the app, have a look at it. Even if you can't use it now, at least you've got the financial education that's there for free.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Final question. Will putting aside as little as £50 a month in Wealth 8 be significant?
Absolutely. Compound interest. It is significant. If you do £50, if you put £50 a month in a bank account that's giving you, in a savings account, giving you 0 interest or 1 or 2%, put it in a Wealth 8. The idea is that your returns on that investment portfolio are reinvested. So it's not just that it's getting 2%, it's getting, so you put £50, say for example, you get 10% returns in the month. So it's going to £55. The £55 is reinvested and it gets 10% again. So but as long as you're doing it for the long haul, and you will see the growth because your portfolio of Wealth, it will ship the portfolio reports, you can track your performance. So yes, nothing is too small. That's why we set it at £8. It's the cost of a cappuccino in some countries.
I know.
So thank you so much.
Cappuccino. My goodness.
Well, I'll do cappuccinos.
Inflation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you
Exactly.
so much. This was so insightful. Love the comments and the engagement from everyone. I've just put up the details of Wealth 8, how to download the app. We want to say thank you to our speaker again. So many takeaways. Hope we can access, I guess we can access the recording. I was going to say access the slides, but you presented it through the recording. So we'll have that available online. And to find out more about Naija startups as well, please visit our website, Building African Business Leaders, through networking opportunities and access to growth and mentorship. So thank you, everyone. Our next webinar is on artificial intelligence. Look out for our emails, and it's a pleasure to have engaged with you today. Thank you, and have a good evening. Thanks again. And
thank you very much, and take care, everyone, and all the best. Good luck, and let's be financial freedom fighters.
Thanks so much, and thanks DT
Thank you.
and Precious as well for holding the fort.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye-bye then. Thank you.
Bye.
Great.